Okay, welcome to Krita. And we're going to open up a document here. And this is the opening up title page. We're going to check to make sure we have a good size. I'm going to change the pixel size to 2000 by 1000. And I'm also going to change the pixels per inch down to 3000 instead of 100. Then if we switch over to the next tab up here at the top, I'm going to start the document with 4 layers as we get started. So there's changing the pixel resolution. We'll move up here to the other screen. I'm still navigating through a lot of this. Here's the layers. We're going to change that, and then we'll open the document. Create a new file. There we go. So I'm just going to check the different layers, and we'll try to name those in just a second. First, we're going to go through and import a picture. And let's see here. We're going to go through, and it's under layers, import export, and you can import a picture. So there it is right there. And my computer's got a couple of slower things to it, so we have to just wait a second for this to launch our folder where I've already saved a picture here. Takes a little bit longer than I would like it to, but that's what I got to do. So go to the desktop and find our folder, or maybe I actually have this in downloads. So there it is. We'll select that, and it pops that on there for us. Now what it's going to do, because the picture size is bigger than what I need, I'm going to select the edit scale size. So transform that so I can move this around, and then I'm going to grab a corner and hold down shift and shrink the photo so that it will fit onto my document. So there it is. Grab the other corner, make it fit, hold down shift so that it keeps its ratios, and there we go. We've got our document open, and it's got everything that we need. So now that we have that, we've got to go through and name our layers and figure out what we need to do. So one of the first things I'm going to do is make a drawing of the landscape. So I've named that folder. I've still got a couple things that I'm learning about Krita, so I don't always know where the buttons are for each thing, but I'm figuring out these properties. I'm going to turn down the opacity on the photo so that I can draw on top of it and it'll show up really easily. So here I take this down about 50%. Now it's a lighter image for the photo, and I can make this drawing. So I go to the next layer, click on that, find a brush that I'm going to want to draw with. So I'm going to try a couple of them out, see what I've got there. I haven't selected the correct color yet for probably drawing on top of this, so I'll select the brush first. Takes a second to find one. The beauty of Krita is that it has a lot of brushes already planned out for you, so you don't have to mess around with them, and they have a picture, so you can just pick the brush that you want, or the pencil, or the charcoal, and then over here I'm going to click a darker color, something a little bit deeper so I can see it. A little zoom out here, and let's try making some lines here. I want to make sure my brush size is the right size. There are the parentheses brackets. Left bracket makes your brush smaller, right bracket makes your brush bigger. So I'm going to go through and try and see if I can't get that to be, kind of a smaller brush. So here I'm writing with it, trying to check it out. Sketch layer. It's my drawing layer. So this is one of the layers that you need to have for the project. This is exercise 5, the lasso layer. And I'm trying to turn off some of these things. There's parts of this where the brush is a little bit laggy. I think I saw somebody saying that if I click on that box, it kind of makes it work a little bit better. I'm not sure I found the right box, but did seem to lag a little bit less after I checked that, and then I went back and started to draw. So now it's a little better. We'll go through, and I'm going to start by sketching out the mountains. I'm going to turn my opacity down so it's not a super strong, super dark brush. And here we go, just kind of sketching on the edge of those lines. If I don't like how something looks, I can erase it, or even quicker, if I hit Control Z, it will undo a brush stroke. So if I just have my hands ready to hit Control Z at any point, I can take away that line and just kind of go back. I am using a Wacom tablet that is plugged into my laptop. I do have a Cintiq, but it's really old and it does not have any pressure sensitivity, so I do not use any kind of draw on the screen kind of tablets for working with Photoshop. I do also have an iPad Pro, and there's some apps on that I do use, but this one I wanted to use something that's free and easy for everybody to access. So I am just drawing the major shapes, and I'm trying to think about what's in the foreground, what's in the middle ground, what's in the background. Those are the layers that we want to set up as we go through and create our document. And at each stage, we're going to try to find something where we can kind of place those in there. So I kind of started by drawing the mountains because those are in the background, or at least they separate the sky from the area that we have in the foreground. And as we kind of move forward, we can start to outline. I'm kind of trying to draw where the trees are, maybe the trees kind of in the middle, and then I'll finally end with drawing the trees that are up in the foreground and a little bit closer. Here we go. Here is the background, kind of marking that area off. Here is the middle ground. I'm going to call it just mid. And down at the bottom we have the foreground. It's the closest area. It has the most contrast and the most detail. That is the end of this layer. Okay, so now we're going to start the next part. This is creating the color swatches. So we're going to sample from the photo and create some color swatches. we'll use those to paint out each of the areas. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to name that layer, put it in the right spot. I usually put the drawing and the swatches up near the top, and then I can always click on those eyeball icons to make them disappear when I don't need them. So once I've got the swatches layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the properties for this photo layer. It took me a second to figure out where to get them, but I found them. Here they are. And I'm going to turn that photo to 100% so that I can see it again. And I didn't click OK, so I have to go back and do it again. So now we can see the full color, the bright color that the photo provides. I did find this photo online. It's a copyright-free use photo. This is the city of Banff in Canada. So here I've selected a different brush, and it's a big round brush. So in Krita, there's two shortcut keys that I like to use. The letter P is the eyedropper. So if you hit the letter P, you can sample a color. And if you hit the letter B, it's brush. And that's how you paint. So I'll hit P and I'll sample this light blue color. And then I'll move over to the side and I will start stamping the color so that I have my swatches over here to the side of the photo. In the previous demo that I did for the Photoshop, I actually did the swatches right on the photo. But here it just seemed like it was going to work better. I've still got a little bit of battling with different parts of the software. I like these shortcut keys that Krita has, but I still don't know them all. So I still haven't figured out how to make them all appear and disappear and how to use them best. But in a second here I can figure this out. And there we go. Grab my brush, get the right one, make it bigger using the right bracket key, sample the color. Still doing this here. I think my pen tablet was like trying to catch, and it was trying to read a right click on my pen, which I didn't configure things, so that's why it was kept popping up. But I figured it out in a couple seconds here. So I'll grab the eye swapper, get the color that I want, then I place it over to the side. And I'm just going to kind of layer these up as I get different ones, from the sky up at the top versus the sky down at the bottom. What does the color of the clouds look like versus the color of the background, the sky, the bright sky versus the dark sky. So now that I have some values for the sky, I'm going to move down and start sampling from the mountains and the values there. It took me a second to figure out that P was the shortcut for the eyedropper, so I think I'm still sampling a little bit, clicking on the tool over on the left, but then I figure it out, and this process gets a little quicker. So I'm going to just stop talking for a second here and just sample some colors. Now, one of the tricks is there's kind of the distant background, and then there's like the other middle ground where we have the forest and the trees kind of popping up. So I'm putting those in now, but they're much brighter than the group that is a little bit farther back. So I kind of have the mountains and some of those as one color set, and then a different color set for the things that are a little bit closer. And what I'll end up choosing is even another set of colors for the foreground. There's a pine tree and a little bit of a hill right up close in the foreground, and those colors are even brighter and even richer than the ones that we just did. So I'm going to end up with kind of 4 sets of swatches. You don't have to have that quite so many. We're going to try to keep this fairly basic, but this is what I made, so we'll just put that together. And I think this is the end of my swatches. And again, I tried to group them. You know, the ones at the top are at the top, the ones in the middle are at the middle, and the ones in the closest foreground are at the bottom. I guess I'm going to go through here and label those. There's the sky ones, here's the middle ground ones, and if I can write it down here, it's a little sloppy and tricky, but I'm trying to write 4 for foreground. Very sloppy. All right, so here I've got that background sketch. I'm gonna have that around, but I'm not gonna necessarily use it to try and figure out where to put things. So I'm going to create my other layers and I'm going to name them. I'm going to try to label a background layer, a middle ground layer, and a foreground layer. And I want to keep them in the order that the foreground layer is at the top, the middle ground layer is in the middle, and the background layer is at the bottom. So I'm going to start with the background here. And I just selected the Lasso tool, which is down here near the bottom. It's kind of a bean shape, and it has a dashed line around it. So I'm using that right now to select the whole sky area. And I'm kind of going back into that. Once you've created a selection, you have those dancing little ants around the selection area. And what you can do is, if you want to add something to that area, then you hold down Control and you add that. And here I am taking some away, and to do that you hold down Alt and draw. So Shift equals add, Alt equals subtract, and so now I have a shape that I think is pretty close. So I'll select one of my colors for the sky, and then I'm going to get a really big brush and paint inside that shape with the sky color. It's going to be really easy because I can't paint outside of that selection. So I can be really loose and really sloppy, and it's not going to really change anything inside this area. So we get a nice light blue color. Change it just a little bit, close enough. So let's get our brush. I'm going to hit the right bracket key and make it really big so I can paint a big area all at once. I might even go through and pick a couple different brushes and try to figure out which one's going to work best. Yeah, here's a fancier brush. We'll make it big. And here I go. I'm just painting it. And notice that I selected on top of the mountains. It's okay because it's going to be part of the background. So the mountains are going to sit in front of this when I get to that layer. But here's that darker blue. Then I'll maybe grab a lighter blue. I'm going to move the drawing up to the top, which I hadn't done. Still fiddling around with things. Get it in the right spot. Takes a little finagling. So there we've got that. Then I'm going to go back to the background layer. I'm going to pick a slightly, looks like I'm going to do the cloud first. So I'm going to try and select the cloud shape now. See if I can do this. You kind of follow the line drawing that I've already made and see how close it looks. This is the advantage of doing the line drawing, is you can kind of go with that, keep the line drawing up and above your layers, and also have a pretty decent guess at what the big shapes are. If you watched the Control Paint Lasso series on his website, which you need to do because Matt Core explains this all much better than I do. He'll talk about using the lasso and filling in the area. We're just trying to do the big shapes first. So here's the cloud shape. Paint that in a little bit. And what I'm going to start to do is kind of mess around, get a little bit of a lighter color down maybe near the bottom, change my opacity slightly to my tool, and see how it looks. Turn off that drawing. I'm going to put on the alpha lock here. If I put that little checkerboard on, that only allows me to paint on top of paint for that layer. So now when I make this really big, I don't have to worry about missing the ground because it's only going to paint on top of my blue paint that I already put down. So just, trying to make that a little more wispy, a little more looking like a cloud and a background. So that is the sky layer, the background layer. It can be better. I can add more detail to it, but this is a good kind of block in first stage. Here I am. I've got a right background. I'm not exactly sure why I spent time doing all that, but get the right brush to be able to do it. Took me like 3 tries just to write background. Not really worth it. But that is the background. And notice that it does overlap on top of the mountains. So what we'll do next is select the mountains and then paint those right on top of the background. And because we do that, it doesn't matter that they overlap. Background done. Hooray. All right, so there's our swatches again. So now I'm going to go through, I'm going to select that dotted dash line bean tool, the selection tool. It's right column, right down near the bottom. It's about 3 or 4 up from the bottom. And I'm starting to select the mountain shapes. So I'm going through, I'm looking at those, and I'm trying to follow that, jagged edge right along the outline, the top part. And I'm going to make a couple mistakes here, and that's okay. And there's another one over there, and I just kind of like work my way down. And notice that I'm going down and in front of the trees now on purpose. It's okay to be over there. And I'm going to use my Alt and fix that little shape up there on the mountain. And that doesn't look right. And I try it again, and I try again. And maybe I'll go through and erase it all, and then hold down Shift and add back the part that I need. So Shift plus your selection tool is add. Alt is erase and subtract. And take some of the extra away from the left side. and I'm going to sample my darker color. I'm going to move to that layer in the middle ground, and I've got a big kind of like square brush now, and I'm just going to start to paint this whole area in with this bluer kind of neutral color. It's not perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just going to try to fill it in. The more times I kind of paint on top of it, because it has a little bit of opacity to it, it looks like you're layering marker on top of marker. But we just need kind of have something to start with. So we'll go through, kind of get that first shape. So now if I turn on the background layer, you'll be able to see that that's sitting behind this new shape. And I'm going to maybe check it out. Nope. I'm going to start now with the snow shapes. So I'm going to turn off that layer, and I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to start selecting and drawing around the shapes for the snow up on the mountains. So I'm going to grab one here, grab one there, try to keep doing that. So I can keep adding multiple shapes even though they're not connected. Anytime I hold down the shift key, it will add more of a new shape. And this is the same thing that I did in the other demonstration video in Photoshop. But back then I didn't have a way to narrate my videos, and now I do. So it's a little bit easier to talk about what we're doing. This is all filmed in real time. So what you're seeing is what I'm doing when I'm doing that. So there's a couple shapes on this mountain slope, and there's a couple more over here. And this is going to be the last section of this video. Just trying to introduce you to the idea of how to block in the big shape, and then how to go through and select smaller shapes and paint those in for your details. So if you can get the big major shapes first, and then you can add some details on top of that, which is what we're doing right now, then you have all the skills that we're trying to learn for this project. Block in the big shapes, then fill in some of the smaller shapes, and you will have something that really looks like a landscape, and it didn't take a lot of work. So I'm going to select a couple more of these. And what I'm doing to select all these is I'm going to select them, then I'll choose my color, and I can bring back those mountain shapes that I just painted, and I can paint these snow shapes on top of the mountain shapes, and I won't ruin anything else that I've already painted because I am only going to be painting inside the selection. So I think I only have a few more that I'm going to do before I switch over and start to paint those, because it really looks like we're close to being done with this video. So almost there to the end. Again, obviously if you have questions, let me know, but pretty straightforward. There's lots and lots of better tutorials than I give on YouTube. That's definitely the best place to find information about Krita for sure, because it's free and that's where people have posted their stuff. So now I have the mountain shape. I'm going to grab my lighter snow color, get my brush nice and big, and then I'm going to just paint inside of those shapes that I just had, and magically we have snow on our mountains. It's a really easy way to kind of add some detail to a big shape. So we paint in the big shapes first, then go in and paint some of the smaller shapes by doing lasso selections. So that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching, and please watch the other videos and Matt Core's stuff that he has on Control Paint if you want to see more. Thanks.